Hello everybody, welcome back to the Working Class Revolt. Today I want to have a talk about the UK general election and an overall review on the number of votes, the number of seats each party got, and whether it's time to look at a new system rather than the first past the post system that we have today. So first of all, we all know who won the election. The Labour Party won the election with 410 seats, an absolute whopping majority. Now, the interesting thing is with the Labour Party, it only actually got 33% of the popular vote, which means 67% of the country didn't vote the Labour Party. It had about 9.6 million votes. But interestingly, it won 68% of parliamentary seats with only, again, 33% of the vote. If we take a look at the Conservatives won 119 seats, which is the lowest number of seats the Conservatives have lost in modern times. It got 6.7 million votes with a percentage of 23.6%. And overall got about 19% of the seats. So the Conservatives' popular vote to the number of seats wasn't that far off. But interestingly, with the Conservatives, is every poll leading up to the general election had the Conservatives on somewhere between 15 and 19%. Now, was them extra million, 2 million voters shy Tory voters, or was, as I suspect, the polls manipulating people to believe that the Conservatives wasn't actually going to get as high as a vote? There was only actually about 10% votes difference between the Conservatives and around 40% difference in the seats. The next party, in number 3, was a fantastic result for the UK Reform Party. And UK Reform Party got 4.1 million votes, about 14% of the overall popular vote, but only won 0.5% of the seats. So just to put that in context again, the Labour Party won 68% of all the seats with 33% of the vote. The UK Reform got 5 seats, because they had the late recount, with 14% of the vote, which means that they only got 0.5% of the actual seats. I saw another channel mention that Reform Party need about 800,000 votes to win a seat, where Labour only need 23,000 votes to win a seat. And that'll be the big argument coming up in the next few weeks and months about changing the system. In 4th place on the popular vote, we had the Lib Dems on 12.1%, slightly behind the Reform Party, but they won 71 seats. Absolutely unbelievable. They won around somewhere between 13 to 15% of all the seats. So the Lib Dems historically argue for proportional representation. It'd be interesting to see if that is still something they argue with, because they actually slightly did better. So overall, with the top 4 parties, we find that when it comes to seats, the 1st and the 4th are the ones that this affected the most. In Labour's case for the good, in the Reform UK's for the bad. The Conservatives and Lib Dems, the Conservatives were slightly under with the popular vote and the Lib Dems slightly over. So what is first past the post system and why do we have it? Now, I voted UK Reform, but I must admit, I do have my hesitations about going to proportional representation. So first past the post that we have now basically has an area constituency. If the party gets the most votes in that constituency, it gets 1 MP, effectively 1 point. Once they get to around 330 MPs, you've got a majority. Now, the downside of that is a party like UK Reform can get millions of views, come second in a lot of seats, and missed only theoretically could just miss out but wouldn't actually get any seats. However, the only good thing with the first past the post system is that your MP will be local to that area and everybody in that area would know who their MP was. Now, many parties, like the Lib Dems, have actually not done too bad off the first past the post. They've learnt not go so much for the national vote, but to concentrate their efforts in winning certain seats. Proportional representation, on the other hand, is very much like we have in Scotland with the Scottish Government, the devolved governments and the Welsh Government. It's also how the EU operated, where Reform did, I say UKIP, did very well, and then the Brexit Party. And it's also like we have in a lot of other European countries. But it is very complicated, and there's several different versions of it. And basically, it's set up where a percentage of the vote would return that percent of MPs or MEPs. What we saw with European MEPs was, rather than you have a local MP in a place like Makefield or a place like Wigan where I am, you would have maybe 6 MPs for the whole of the Northwest. And that's the downside of the first past the post system. But there's definitely got to be conversations. And I know Nigel Farage just spoke about another version where you get a second choice. I guess that'd be something maybe similar to when you're voting for the mayoral elections. When it first came around, you had a first choice and a second choice. But it's a tricky one. They both have the pros and cons. I certainly would have loved to see UK Reform Party get 100 MPs, and even parties who I don't align with, like the Greens. The Green Party, for the people who are more on the left wing of the spectrum. It would be good to have all sorts of opposition, and the more opposition you get, the more healthier that the governments in charge are going to be, because they're always worried about it flipping either way when an election's up. The problem obviously with this majority for the Labour Party is they haven't really got a lot to worry about. You know, they don't have to worry about keeping anybody else happy. They can push their agenda forward. On the other hand, some people would argue that that's better, that you have a big, strong government in what keep the country stable. We see in other European countries, Italy for one, that sometimes you get an absolute mess because no party, like in this election, the Labour Party only getting 33%, no party can get an overall majority. So you start getting all sorts of coalitions joining together and falling to pieces. You'd have a coalition like Reform, maybe in the Conservatives, the Lib Dems teaming up with the Labour and the Green, and all these different factions come together and they collapse. You've got to have another general election, and there's no stability. So they both have their ups and downs. But please comment and let me know what you think. Do you think that we need a change in the system? Or do you think that the first past the post is better, and parties like Reform, now that they've got the information, I saw the deputy leader saying this, that they believe they'll break through on the first past the post system anyway, which personally I do. I think 2029, I think Reform will be up to 50, 60, 70 seats. And I think by 2034, that'll be when they're in a position to maybe form a government. They also, at that time, would have had 10 years to get themselves more professional and get a lot of other people in place. So when Nigel Farage does retire, I must admit, I was one of those people that hadn't made my mind up whether I was going to vote Reform until Nigel came back. And Farage is by far the best politician we have in the United Kingdom. He's the most entertaining. He's the best communicator. He's plenty of energy. But it's not healthy for a party to depend on one person. People like Richard Tice, I think, are going to be good MPs. But when you're a smaller party, you've got to have that electrifying leader in order to bring all those people together. Oh, and if I could ask you all, if you could all please like and share, and please subscribe to this channel, and please let me know what your thoughts are. Let me know, do you think we should have proportional representation? How do you feel about the new Labour government? Do you think that they're going to do a good job? Are they going to stop the votes? Are they going to lower immigration, fix the NHS? I think it'll be a very short honeymoon period indeed. Thank you all very much, and I look forward to next time.